Hey guys, what up, what up, what up? Welcome to Videography Tutorials. Not Videography Tutorials, you guys already watched Videography Tutorials. The Quantum Photography Videography Tutorials taught by moi. Alright, so let's jump right into it. What's next? I got my bulletin points over there written down. Camera settings and exposure for video. Okay, so we talked about exposure theory and we talked about how to expose for pictures, okay? And I give you guys some rules. Remember those rules? Guess what? There's a little bit different rules for video, okay? And that rule is, there's only one rule, okay? Aperture is the same rule. ISO is the same rule, okay? So you can change the aperture according to the rules that I give you last time, 1.8 to 3.2. You can change the, you can set the ISO, stay below 2000, but the real rule is you can't change the shutter speed, okay? The shutter speed has to be, if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, okay? And let's talk about this real quick on this guy here, okay? We're gonna turn this on. We're gonna go to menu, here menu. If we're shooting video on the D, which is not going to be the case, we're most likely going to use the Lumix G7. But anyway, when you on movie settings, you go to the menu, go to the camera thing here on movie settings. You see here it says frame size and frame rate. So this is the 1080p camera max, so obviously doesn't have the 4K setting. But here you see it says 30p and it says 24p and 60i. So whatever your frame rate is, and I know you guys remember this from some of the older tutorials, the first few tutorials that I showed you guys, the shutter speed has to be half of the frame rate. So if your frame rate is, I'm sorry, not half, I'm sorry, shoot me, double, I'm sorry, it should be double, okay? So if you're shooting 30 frames per second, your shutter speed has to be 1/60. You got that? If you're shooting 60 frames per second, like high speed basically, then your shutter speed has to be 1/20, okay? And if you're shooting 24 frames per second, then your shutter speed has to be, you guessed it, 1/48, but there is no 1/48 setting for shutter, so you're just gonna do 1/50, okay? So your shutter has to be set, it's locked, okay? The camera will allow you to go lower than that, not too much lower. You'll be able to go to, like, if you say you're shooting in 24 frames per second, remember frames per second is basically how many images per second of video, because a video is a collection of images, all right? So if you're shooting 24 frames per second, your camera is going to allow you to go to 1/25 for shutter. And if you're doing 1/60 frame, 60 frames per second, your camera will allow you to go to 1/60, even though you should be doing 1/20. But the recommended setting is, you won't be able to go below that though, by the way. The camera will literally not let you go below whatever the frame rate is. If it's 24 frames, it won't let you go below 1/25, okay? But the recommended setting for shooting video is set remember, your aperture is the same rules as photography. Your ISO, same rules as photography, but your shutter has to be specifically double the frame rate, okay? And if we're shooting in 1080p, the frame rate should be 60, it should be 60i. On the Nikon, change it to 60i for all the cameras that are present there. And if you're shooting in 4K, then you have to shoot in 30 frames per second, okay? On the Lumix G7, shoot in 30 frames per second. Unless the camera, for some reason, if I'm using a different model, can only do 24 frames per second, do the highest frames that the camera can do. You got it? So that's for camera settings. And and exposure is the same. It's literally the same as photography. The same way you would expose it, make sure it's brighter, more towards the plus side a little bit. You don't have a flash, so you never have to go that way. You never have to go towards the negative side. And even if you have an LED is never going to be as strong as a flash. A flash literally brightens up the entire venue for a fraction of a second, but LED is constant light, so it's never going to be bright enough where you would underexpose it and then re-expose it that way. So say I'm shooting video, right? And we'll also make this a quick gear tutorial as well. You will grab your tripod. Don't shoot with the monopod unless you're really good at it, which is, it's hard to get good at it. So we're gonna start with the tripod, okay? Alright, so first thing you want to do, obviously grab your camera. Take out the tripod from the tripod bag. We'll breeze through this real quick, okay? Pop that off. Each tripod has a leg, and each leg has these little knobs. Extend it all the way, lock it back. Extend the second one, lock it back, and do it to all the legs, okay? Boom. 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 Bam, right there, okay? Okay. The quick release plate. Okay. This is called, one sec guys. This is called a quick release plate, okay? This has a screw. This has a hole on the bottom. So does the other camera as well. We'll put that part in here and screw it in. Okay, and make sure that this is parallel like this way, okay? Okay. Screw it in. Make sure that this is a rectangular thing, so make sure it's like that way. Like this. You got it? Lock it in, make sure it's tight. Make sure it's elongated over here, okay? And make sure this thing is like this, okay? And then what you want to do is slide it inward this way towards this knob. This way first, and then it snaps. This thing snaps, okay? Alright. Now I'm gonna make it a little taller so that way you guys can see better. Crank this knob. See this knob here? There's a knob right here. When it rotates, it gets higher, okay? So what you want to do basically is that make sure it's your height. You know, so make it a comfortable height for yourself. Like eye level, you know, like eye level probably, like around here. I like to go a little bit lower, probably like around there. That's my personal preference, okay? And lock it in, make sure you lock it in. Make sure everything is locked in. Now, there's two knobs here, okay? The upper knob right here is a tension knob for going like this. This way and that way, tilting up, tilting down, okay? And there's another knob on the bottom for rotating, okay? Because obviously the whole point of video is smooth motion. You got it? You want to make sure you always have smooth motion, okay? So that's how you set up the tripod. I would highly recommend always use a tripod. I will probably give you guys a monopod depending on how other people's performance are with the monopod, but the tripod is the most stable way. You can move it around if you want to move it around. You lift it up, close the legs. That's what she said, right? Close the legs, move to your target area, open up, bam, start shooting. You got it? Just like that, okay? And remember, you can either stand still, you can pan, you can tilt up. We'll go over camera movement afterwards, but I just wanted to quickly show you guys how to set up the tripod. Is that camera settings and exposure for video, using manual focus and how to master it? So is everything ready for video? Okay, so yeah, that's it for now. We talked about camera settings. That was the main point of this tutorial. So in the next one, we will go over movement and stability, okay?